Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight here at the Leak Project. I am your host, Rex Bear, and we have a great guest with us tonight, Kendall Falk. Now, I met Kendall about 4 years ago when I used to spend a large portion of my time blogging and researching different news forums. Often there would be roundtable discussions, and one forum in particular I would go on, we would discuss current events, politics, alternative news, and history. A lot of what the guests discuss here at the Leak Project. Now, I'll never forget the first time Kendall reached out to me on voice chat and said she felt compelled to tell me something, and she started to describe a dog I had several years ago, literally to a T, all the way down to its half blue eye, because it was part Australian Shepherd. Now, as skeptical as I was at first, when she got into that much detail, it definitely opened my mind to the possibility that I wasn't getting my leg pulled and she wasn't making it up. Now, Kendall, being an artist, a performer, a storyboard creator, and friend, she is also a multi-year contactee and has had paranormal encounters and abilities since childhood. Now, Kendall has made contact with different types of greys, reptilians, and Nordics, or what some might call Pleiadians. She also has the ability to control lucid dreaming, remote view, and astral project. She's an amazing artist with a very unique ability to cartoon somebody's pet, or anything for that matter. And much of her time now, she creates colorful works of art at www.cartoonmydog.com. Also, she's got some great videos on YouTube, youtube.com/Kendall Falk, spelled Kendallfalk. Now, we're going to discuss many of Kendall's encounters and paranormal experiences. Kendall, it's great to have you on here with us tonight at the Leak Project. I really appreciate you spending some time with us. If you would please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me on. I grew up on the East Coast in Connecticut, and my family and we've had a lot of experiences. We've seen ghosts. We've had those kind of supernatural things happen, and over time it just got weirder and weirder. I've always been open-minded and a little skeptical, but ever since things started happening, like all the experiences with these ghosts, I started opening my mind a little bit more, reading a lot of books, talking to a lot of people, watching a lot of documentaries, and especially when when big events happen. Oh, sorry, I just got interrupted because somebody just came in the door.
No problem.
um, yeah, I'll just basically, like, there are a lot of experiences that we had as a family. Um, some of us were not that open-minded, but I've always been open to this kind of stuff. Like, we went to a place called Friendship Island. Sounds a little silly, but it's actually in Maine. And we stayed in a house that nobody told us was haunted. I was very young, and I had my first ghost experience there where I saw a little boy, and he had died from some kind of illness or something like that. And for some reason, I don't know why, but it never dawned on me that, oh, this person was a ghost. I just always thought that there was a little boy that was hanging around the house. And I don't know if I told you about that one experience, but that was the experience that kind of opened my mind after the fact, because my father told us that the house was haunted, or supposedly haunted, when we had left. And I that was when I realized, oh, okay, I guess that the boy that I saw wasn't a real boy or
Right.
something.
Now, was it
Yeah.
like a full apparition? Looked just like a normal person, not see-through or anything like that? Nothing gave you the impression when you saw him that he was a ghost?
No, I didn't get any impression that he was a ghost. I thought that he was staying with us, and that he had asked to play some games. It sounds a little cliche, but he did. And this would happen during the night, and it was just a little strange. I just didn't really. I was really young though. I was about 4 or 5, and this is really, really, really long time ago. But a more recent experience is when I was about 16 or 17, and I had seen a ghost appear in my room, full apparition. I just knew that they were there because I had an extreme feeling. And now, when you if you ever see a ghost or if you ever have any kind of supernatural event happen, there's always this really very strong feeling in the room that there's somebody there. And I knew that it wasn't anybody else because the dogs weren't in the room and my mother was upstairs. So when I turned around, I saw this apparition of a man in a 19th century suit. And he was coming towards me, and of course I didn't know what to do. My brain was trying to put this all together. I was definitely not hallucinating. It was clear as day, you know. So the only thing I could muster out was no, no. I didn't know what else to do. And he kind of stopped and he froze in place and he looked at me, and then he slowly just sort of dissipated, and I heard, "I'm sorry," you know. And the next thing I know, that I fainted from this because I was so shocked from the experience that I fainted. And I had had an out of body experience where I then met that ghost on the other side, and he sat down and he explained how he was sorry that he scared me. So that was the second time I ever saw like a person. Of course, when I was a kid, you know, there were like these things that would happen. I would see people that you know I thought there was just around, and it turns out that when I think back on it, they were never supposed to be there. And like this one instance where my father and I were in the car, and there was a man that looked like part of his face was like, I don't know, damaged, or like he got hit by a car, or his, like, I know it's a little bit graphic, but it's like socket was sort of, you know, coming out of his eye, and it was just kind of like, it looked like his face was kind of melting. It was weird. And I asked my dad, I'm like, "Dad, did you see that guy with the eye?" And he was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about?"
Wow, so he
I
was in
was
the
about
car
10
with
or
you?
11 when that happened. So yeah.
I'm telling you, chills just went up my arms. The hair is standing up on my arms right now. Do you think that that was a ghost that was basically might have had this horrific car accident or something, and then he was just sitting there next to you, like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
Yeah, it probably was. And I'm just remembering also that I recently went to a ghost investigation. There's a California ghost investigation group that I went with, and on the way back, I was on the highway and I saw this girl in a black dress. Now, I don't know if it was a ghost or not, but she was right in the middle of the freeway, and this was not a hallucination. This is again clear as day, not even not even transparent. This is like a girl in a black dress with like no shoes, and she was just like, she looked like, you know, as if like a cat were going back and forth, really confused. So she was just walking forward, backward, and then like that was that. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the hell? So I called up the guys and I'm like, I just saw this, you know, woman in a dress, and it was really strange.
How many times would you say you've seen a ghost?
Well, um, probably about 5 times, including the one from my early childhood. Thomas, yeah, I found out what his name was later on. That's the second one.
How did you
Third,
find out his name?
I was well, there was actually a radio thing going on where there was a psychic guy who was invited to the Edge AM with Daniel Ott. He was hosting it, and they were trying to figure out what people's spirit guides' names were. But instead, this guy Tommy, he's supposed to be a medium, and he was saying that there was a presence in my room and that it was really strong. He was saying, "Oh, this person is Kendall's spirit guide," and my jaw dropped because he said, "You know, it's funny because it looks like he's in some kind of 19th century suit." And yeah, his name is Thomas, and he's tall, and he's thin, and all of that is correct. So, of course, when I told my mother this, because I was living with her, I was like, "Mom, guess what? You know, da 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 da," and she was just like, "Whatever." Nobody really got what was going on, but I did, and so I just kind of accepted that. And after I did, I tried to, you know, get him to show up. So there was this one time where my mother wasn't home, and I decided to try to, you know, it sounds weird, but summon him or try to get him to appear. Because here I am, I've seen a ghost. I know he exists, whether he's my spirit guide or not. And I asked him if he could show himself. Nothing happened. Of course, I feel like an idiot because I'm like, oh my God, this is so dumb. I'm just trying to ask for validation from something that's probably in my imagination or whatever. Well, I mean, because I am a little skeptical of this stuff. You have to understand. I have a strong science background. I have an associate's degree in applied science, and I studied, you know, the medical field to be a veterinary technician. Of course, it's just not really quite my thing. But without getting off on a tangent, um, it's just important to be skeptical about these things. So when I asked for the ghost to show up, nothing happened until I got really, you know, annoyed. I'm like, this is just so stupid. I'm like, why can't you ever just give me, you know, a damn sign? And then all of a sudden, the power just completely went out, and the lights started flickering. So not only the power didn't go out, but the lights were like flickering, and there was a huge ball, about the size of like a basketball, that appeared in the corner of the room in the ceiling. And it wasn't a fuse, it wasn't any reflection because I had the curtains closed. So I didn't want people to like watch me do this thing. So that happened and I freaked out. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, I believe you. I believe you. You exist. And I thought at this point, I thought this can't be this friendly 19th century ghost that appeared in my room. It has to be some other entity. So I called my mother, I told her what happened, and she, of course, giggled and thought it was funny, but it wasn't to me because the lights were like flickering. I'm like, Mom, there's something wrong with the house. I did something weird by accident. So, yeah, it calmed down after a while. I just kind of, I went back and I was shaking. I'm like, okay, like whoever's here, I just want positive light, in this house. So, please leave, or whatever it was, whatever negative energy I felt in the house kind of went away, or it was just a test. So if you ever want to see a ghost, if anybody out there wants to see a ghost or an alien, like it's just highly not recommended. It's actually a very jarring experience. But if you can handle it, all the power to you.
Now, when did you have your first encounter with an extraterrestrial?
My first encounter with an extraterrestrial was the Greys, and again, that's probably around the same time. I saw that ghost Thomas or whatever. But the first time I saw an extraterrestrial was when I was about 17 or 18. Again, these are the times when I was sort of like came back from college for a summer break, or yeah, it was about like my early college year when I was at the Ringling College of Art and Design studying illustration. And what had happened was I was lying in bed. It wasn't time to go to bed yet, and I saw these lights outside, like these lights, like red and blue lights or something like that. And I thought, oh, okay, it's probably just a police car or something. And the lights got pretty close to my window, and I thought, no, it's not really a big deal. But for some reason, I was thinking it's not a big deal. And the next thing I know, um, now, it's important to understand and distinguish the difference between dreaming and what is real. And with these abduction experiences, it can be very hard to explain this, because what happens with abductees is they put a screen memory in your mind. So, I mean, all the memories that I have from this experience are absolutely legit. Like, I'm not pulling it out of anywhere else. But the next thing I know, I just remember walking into the kitchen, walking into the living room, getting the video camera and trying to film this thing, because there was a craft that was sort of gliding, past the window, and it was about to land in the driveway. While
What
I
did
was
it look
about to
like?
land in what?
What did the craft look like?
It was just sort of oval-ish, but it seemed to have it was oval-ish, and but it landed in the driveway, it was actually egg-shaped. So it was more egg-shaped than anything, and it seemed to have like three little lander legs when it landed in the driveway. Almost like, a like a one of the satellites for Venus,
Okay.
or the probes, or whatever they have to, use
What kind of
to send.
noise did it make?
It didn't make any noise. It was silent. So when I walked out there, I grabbed the video camera, I tried to film it. My camera, just everything died. And then the next thing I know, I am going outside. I remember the feeling of walking across the grass, cold, wet, damp grass on my feet. And I went into the driveway and I was just standing there. And then I look ahead and I see this gray alien. He was in a silver suit. He was looking into my window. There may have been two of them, but I remember there was one looking into the window, and then the next thing I know, he's walking towards me in this really strange sort of way. It's kind of like just a weird, I don't even know how to describe it. He's just walking really strange. And then he put his palm up, and this thing has like really black almond shaped eyes. And he has his palm up facing me, and I hear in my mind, I hear, "Do not be afraid. We will not harm you." So, but at the same time, I am frightened. I can't move. I'm thinking, okay, this kind of reminds me of sleep paralysis. Of course, I wasn't thinking about that at the time. But anyway, I was standing there and I couldn't move. And then the next thing I know is that I am lying down somewhere, and there's a feeling of going extraordinarily fast. Um, and we're heading towards the ocean because we lived right on the water. So then we go into the water, And I know that I'm already inside the ship or whatever it is. And we go in, and then there's a momentary period of darkness where I feel like we're just moving extraordinarily fast, and then it stopped. And then I had realized that I was not, I was no longer in my bed anymore, and I was somewhere else completely. Oh, that's right. And I forgot to mention that there was a brief moment where my mother was looking through the window and she was screaming and like, oh my gosh, it's like, where are you going? No, no, you know? But I couldn't do anything and she couldn't do anything. And, I'm wondering if they made it so that she forgot about what happened. I don't know. So I'm finding myself in this base of some sort, and I open my eyes and I feel like really drugged out. I'm not a person that takes drugs or anything like that, but I felt really drugged out, like I had been drugged. And there was a person or somebody, I can't remember their face at all. They came up to me and they kind of, it felt like I was in some sort of a wheelchair or something, and they were just taking me around. And they brought me over to these crystals, and there are these big white crystals. And the person or the entity or whatever it was had explained to me that these crystals were used to power the craft that they were using, or some sort of energy source. And then they had taken me to a different, like I had gone through this tunnel. There was like a cave or tunnel nearby where there was a fast, I believe like an underground train, but we had gone to a different city, and it sort of looked a little bit like desert like city, like kind of like Iraq or somewhere else. But we were walking around there, and I just remember seeing different cultures, and there was just something going on. And then that was really it. And then the rest of it just turned into a dream. So that was really my first experience. And the reason why it's such a jarring thing, because I know that there's a major difference between lucid dreaming and actually being somewhere. I actually felt like I was in this place. Um, so it was bizarre. And those things, they get really bizarre. So, and I've had a few other experiences with them, which the other ones I'm about to tell you they make a little bit more sense than the very first one.
Well, so it sounds like I've heard a lot of stories before where there's actually a very good possibility that there's multiple bases under the water and that there's more sightings of UFOs going in and out of the water than from space. So a lot of it isn't talked about in the mainstream media, obviously, but so that's
Right.
that's fascinating. And a friend of mine that used to be in the Department of Defense in the Northwest told me a story about how he saw one time a UFO saucer actually pop out of Crater Lake up there in Oregon, just like straight up, and then blast off. Like basically a 45-degree angle, way faster than anything he'd ever seen before. So that's interesting when you say it took you into water and you were close
Mhm.
to the water there. What was the next encounter that you had?
So after this happened to me, I was a little shaken up and also curious at the same time. I can't remember if it was before or after that. I really don't remember if the reptilians came first, because I know that the very first time I had seen a reptilian, I got really interested in David Icke stuff afterward, because that was like kind of the source that told me or showed me that these reptilians existed,
So
because I
you
had never,
saw the reptilian before you read anything about David Icke.
or any reptilian stuff at all.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, so we had gone to Florida. My mother and I visited my grandparents, and we stayed in this apartment complex, and I stayed with my mother in the same room. We both had our separate beds. So actually, like almost the second to last night we were about to leave, I had I had fallen asleep with the TV on, but then there was something strange that started happening to me, where I had astral projected or had an out of body experience where I started feeling myself sinking and going lower, and then I found myself in another base. Of course, not the one that I had experienced the first time, but I had just realized that I was somewhere else again, and there was a long kind of corridor going down that sort of looked like a hospital, and I was walking around. And um, I think that, for in this circumstance, I was actually there in my spirit body. Like if I astral projected, I wasn't actually walking around physically, but I was exploring the area, and I noticed that there was like strange equipment and um, labs and things like that. And I noticed that something particularly got my attention, and that was this shelf that had a lot of jars on it. And inside the jars they were labeled with, numbers, and there are strange looking little like things inside. I'm like, the heck is this? So I look closer and I realized that they're fetuses, or like animal fetuses and human fetuses. And the next thing I know, there's a presence behind me, and I turn around, and it's this like 5 to 6 foot tall, or actually they were pretty short, so about 5 foot tall. Well, I'm 6 foot 1.5. This thing is like half my size, so I guess probably 4 to 5 feet tall.
Okay.
It was this reptilian creature that had really large yellow eyes with cat-like pupils, and he had a sort of like a Cheshire cat looking grin. Not like it was smiling. It just the way they looked. And he had tiny little teeth, and this thing was standing upright like it was bipedal, and he had a softer underbelly, and he was a little like mottled brown and gray, grayish, kind of greenish, grayish, brownish, greenish, kind of like a mix of those colors. And there were two of them actually. There was another one that came up, and there were two of them. And when I saw this, I was like, oh my God. And I got really frightened. I got really frightened to death. And then, um, the next thing I know, my consciousness returns back to, when I'm in my bed. My consciousness returns. For people that, don't experience astral projection, or they have no idea what it is, it's going to sound really weird and really confusing. But the concept of astral projection is when your consciousness is able to travel to a different location at a different point of time, or even like right now in the present. So what happened was my consciousness was projected to this place, or whatever it was. I don't know why I had gone there. But immediately I found myself completely paralyzed from head to toe physically. So we're going from astral projection to my soul or my spirit returning to my body, and I'm in bed now. But I'm completely aware of what's going on. I can see everything. I can hear everything. I can see everything, even though my eyes are closed. So you might call this an extremely terrible, night terror, but I was aware of everything. So this reptilian had somehow followed me back to where I was sleeping, and it was suddenly over me. It was standing over me, or sitting on top of me, or I don't know what it was doing. And it was staring at me in the face. A lot of people talk about old hag syndrome, with astral projection, where there's some like entity or demon thing sitting on you.
Right.
Well, the thing was like looking at me, and um, I was thinking, holy shit, I am so terrified. I have to somehow be able to move and kick this thing off of me, but I just couldn't. So then I also realized at that point in time that my mother has the other one on top of her. Remember I mentioned there were two of them. So both of them had come into the room. Now they're on the bed and they're staring at us, and I'm completely helpless. I have no idea what to do. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you just try to, like, do something, just move your muscles, but nothing would happen. And I couldn't scream, I couldn't do anything. So this lasted for about, I don't know, it seemed to last for like a minute, and I was taking in all the details of this creature and what he was doing. For some reason, he just couldn't get at me. It seemed to be like protected by my own aura or something. He looked really vicious, like he was really trying to come at me or scratch me or something like that. And then finally I come out of it, and my eyes shoot wide open, but it's weird because I was already seeing what was happening. So I just realized I'm like right there, and and then this thing is just all of a sudden, like, all I see are these two reptilians, and they run right through the wall and disappear. And that at that moment, I I was like, "Oh my God." And my mother was sleeping. I turn on the light. I'm like, "Mom, you have no idea what just happened. Something really scary just happened. There are these dinosaur things that came into the room." And she was like, "Go back to bed. It was just a nightmare." A typical thing to say, but she really did say that. She was like, "You were just having a nightmare. It's fine." And I'm like, "No, no, you don't understand." So I got out of the bed. The light was on. I'm like shaking, looking around the room. I'm like, "Mom, you don't understand what just happened." I'm like, "What the hell just happened?" And so I tried to tell her the next morning. She was like, "Kendall, you really need to let this go. Like, this is really crazy. You need to see a doctor or something." So I didn't let it go. I was like determined to figure out what the hell just happened. And I looked it up online, and like I typed in green dinosaur lizard things in your dreams or whatever. And that is when reptilian shapeshifters and reptilians came up. And I was just like, what? So I clicked on it and I started reading about it. Now, with reptilian shapeshifters, I don't know exactly what to think about that. I don't think that that is a thing. Maybe with the very, very, very powerful people at the top of the pyramid, maybe. But I've never experienced a reptilian shapeshifter before, like in that kind of sense. So that really, 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 really got me even more open-minded. But I don't know. I mean, there is a certain factor to these things. There's a certain line that you don't cross, and it's this line that I have to take into account. I have to keep my, I'm just trying to, find any kind of logical reason why that would happen. And I don't really watch that much space alien stuff. I really don't. Like at the time that that was happening, I was really super into video games and I still really am. I love video games. But I wasn't really into Star Trek or, you know, anything like that. Although I do like Star Wars right now though. It's good. So that was that. That was that experience.
And for some reason, with all the people that I've spoken to, abductees, contactees, even I have somebody that I know here in San Antonio that has no reason to make up a story about being abducted, but this guy lived in Mexico for 18 years, and he remembers walking in a city in Mexico. I can't remember where it was. I think it was outside of Cancun or something like that. I'll have to double verify it with him, but lost time. And then he describes these green looking type beings doing these like experiments on him and stuff like that. So it's more like communion, I would say,
Yeah.
with his experiences. Did they ever do any experiments on you, like on a table? Do you remember being on any type of chair or anything like that?
Yeah, there were a few times that, the grays would come back and I would have those experiences. And it got to the point where it got so bad that I was just like, this is just ridiculous. I have to do something to stop like these horrible nightmares or whatever. At the time I was thinking like that. And I thought, okay, I'll just go see um the hypnotist. At the time I was in Oregon and it was getting really bad there because there was this one instance where, you know, I had my whole entire body was tingling from head to toe and I felt really stiff, like I couldn't move. And then I couldn't even breathe. And then I breathed again and I was like, what the heck is happening? And then it happened again. And I had this experience where I had gone out of body again, but I thought I had died or something. And there's a woman there that was telling me that I couldn't stay here because if I did, my physical body would die. And everything, all my relatives I had passed on were there, and there was a beautiful, feeling. And she said, "You can choose to be reincarnated if you want to in the next life." And she's explaining all these things to me, and I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave where I was because it felt like home, and I just wanted to keep on moving forward to where these people were. And then I felt my heart kind of thump in my, physically in my bed where I was. And it was at that moment that she said, "You can't stay here because your physical body will die if you do." And then I felt the heart thump thump again. And then I finally, there was like this rubber band feeling. And then I was just, and then I just went, and I woke up and it was just really scary. But it didn't have to do anything with aliens at the time. It's just, there was a lot of activity going on. But anyway, I went to get hypnotized and I found out some information. But it's a little bit it's a little bit disconnected because I didn't even mention the experience with the Pleiadians yet, but that's kind of what it connects to because I did have at the time again around 17, 18, I had a dream where these four entities came up to me. They were four tall beings, and all I just remember they were just blue. They're just glowing blue, and they told me, they said, "Kendall, you are Pleiadian," and that's the only thing I remember. And I kind of just took it and ran with it and thought, okay, well, I guess I'm Pleiadian then, maybe. So it was, that happened actually after the Greys, the Grey experience, like the big one, the most memorable one that I explained to you, where I found myself in that base with the crystals and everything. So I did have an experimentation done on me one time. It was probably 2008, 2009. I had stayed at my dad's during the summer and I had gone up to bed and then again, I feel like I'm saying this a lot, but the next thing I know, um, there's this craft outside the window and it's a black triangular craft. It's hovering outside the window and I feel my body being lifted up and brought outside the window. Like literally the window doesn't even have to open. I just go right through it. Sounds really weird and stupid, but that's what happened. And I'm all of a sudden, they're doing something to my face. They're basically taking these instruments and they're peeling part of my cheek back, like the skin, and they're doing something with chips or some sort of thing going on. And there's a burning sensation. So that's the only thing I remember about experimentation in that sense. And then after that was done, the most terrifying thing is that I heard a voice say, "Okay, you can put her back in her bed now." And it's just complete blackness. And I open my eyes and I can't see anything at all. I can't make out any shapes, anything. My eyes probably need time to adjust, but I'm just freaking out. I'm like trying to find a light and I turn it on and I calm down. And that's another thing that happened. So, and then again in Colorado, and I went back because after Oregon, that's when I went to Bellray to become a veterinary technician. So it happened there too. So there was an instance that I won't get into where there was a guy that got into our house and we became friends with him. But, my roommate and I, we didn't really know who he was. And there are some things that happened. And I had seen that, like when he left, I had seen a gray in the room. I turned, for some reason, I just didn't get as scared as I would. And I turned around and I went back to sleep thinking that I was just kind of hallucinating or whatever. Um, and then I feel my entire body lock up and the whole buzzing sensation feel like I feel it again. I'm like, oh no, not again. And they come into the room and, I'm just lying on my back and I can't do anything. And I feel that lifting sensation again. And there's three of them. One of them is wearing like a lab coat and he puts this bloody fetus in my arms. And he said, "This is yours." And I said, "No, it's really not." I mean, at the time I didn't say no, it's really not. I just said, "No, this isn't mine." Um, it didn't look like my baby at all. It was just such a bizarre looking thing. And it looked dead, to be honest with you. It looked dead. So that was like, I think that was the last experience with grays that happened, um, that I can really remember a lot from. But it was just really awful because it just kept on happening. There was nothing I could do. Like I am a crazy person. Like we're all crazy, but like I have both of my, I have my head on both of my shoulders. I try to be a critical thinker. I try to make sense of these things that happen. And I know what hallucination is. I know what sleep paralysis is. When these things happen, it's completely different. And it happens to a lot of people. And so the reason why I guess I found out that it was happening to me is because I found out that I have some kind of DNA that they want. And it's not just me. It's like thousands of other people. And I don't get anything out of this. I don't feel special or anything like that. I just want to know what the hell's going on. I just want to know what it's all about. And I guess it's a part of, it's supposed to be about some hybrid program, which is kind of what I got from my research. So
Were your
that,
parents or any of your family members in the military or with the Department of Defense?
yeah. Well, I mean, my grandmother used to build planes during World War II, but that's just kind of typical, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't think that's anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah, no, nobody. The only thing, um, we were. I'm not going to mention his name. Nobody, I'm not going to mention his name, but
No problem.
I told you about this. But my father and my stepmother are friends with this man who's a member of the Bohemian Grove. And I had met him because at the time, it's so funny, I was doing all this research on the Bohemian Grove and I was like, wow, this is so interesting. And my father, had come to visit me at the time and he told me, he's like, oh, guess who's a member? And it happened to be the guy that I babysat for. I babysat his daughter. And he just subsequently he was going to visit during the summer barbecue. So he did, and I thought, oh cool, this is awesome. I'm totally gonna ask him about this, secret thing. um, I heard all these conspiracy theories about it. So I approached him and I saw him and and I said, so, I heard that you are part of the Bohemian Grove. And he turned around and he was like, yes. He said, how did you find out about that? And I was just like, well, I just kind of, just know about it. And he said, no, who told you about the Bohemian Grove? And I said, well, my father kind of told me that you were part of it. And he's like, no, how did you find out about Bohemian Grove? So he was just kind of heckling me at that point. And I thought, okay, well, I said, well, I did a lot of research. And he stopped me and he was like, oh, so you're a researcher. And I was like, yeah, I'm a researcher. And he was there with his wife. Um, but they're nice people. If they're listening to this, I hope not, but they are nice people. Um, like I haven't done anything mean or anything like that to me personally. I just felt like I just felt stalked a little bit. I was not paranoid by any means. But what happened was, we were talking about that. He explained what Bohemian Grove was. So basically, Bohemian Grove is nothing hidden. It's really not a secret society. It's just kind of like not even a fraternity. It's more of an art society that happens every year in midsummer in July. They go out to the camps in the southern part of California, and there's a big statue, a big hollow statue of an owl. Really, it's all hollowed out because that's where um, the music station, like the audio station, is, where they play this bizarre audio ritual kind of thing. And I asked them, I'm like, is it really true that you dress up? Because these people, they have this ritual called the cremation of care, and I asked them about that too. But they basically dress up and they burn a dummy, and it's kind of really similar to the Burning Man in California, where they have this big straw guy on a bunch of wooden sticks or whatever,
Right.
and you burn it, and it's supposed to be like symbolic. So I asked him, like, why do you guys do that? And he said, well, it's just kind of about letting go of your worries of the world, and it's about sacrificing dull care. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, it just means just means don't worry about what other people are doing. Just kind of burn your worries away and continue on, or whatever. So
Did you
then,
believe him?
did I believe him? I don't know, and a little bit.
About the
Um,
explanation of why they burnt a.
well, it's a straw dummy, but it's a I asked him one time. I'm like, are you pagan? Are you interested in any kind of like magical stuff? And he was like, nope. And I was thinking in the back of my mind, then why do you do that? Then why do you do that if you don't believe in it? What's the point?
Well,
If
it just
it maybe
sounds
it's
like.
just
Sorry to interrupt, Kendall. I was just going to say it just sounds like they're doing some type of mock sacrifice. If you study the occult at all, I mean that's I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything, but I'm saying that's most likely what it is. A mock sacrifice ritual.
it is. No, it is, because the statue is supposed to represent Moloch. It's a representation of a god, and what they're doing is they're sacrificing their Dolkar, and it's representation of all the energies that like it's whatever. I guess it's whatever. You have all these. They're really into financial meetings, so I guess it has to do with that. But the thing that freaked me out was that he would kind of appear where I would be. So I'd be riding my bike down the street, and he would kind of like drive down the road and slowly roll down the window, and he'd be like, "Hi, Kendall," and then roll it up and drive away. And it would happen like a couple times, and then he'd appear when we were at the beach club and we were just having our meals, and he would just be there, or and then also like she or not sorry, yeah, the thing is that his wife, like the day that I kind of knowingly tantalized him about Bohemian Grove, I was asking him questions because I knew that I was getting myself into uh something dangerous, but I didn't really care. So I wanted to know what was going on. And it was that day that, during the summer barbecue, his wife was there, and um he told her that I asked him about Bohemian Grove, because he was like, guess who asked me about it? Because they did it right in front of me. And she was like, oh, I don't know what happened. Like, who? And he said, well, Kendall asked me about it. And, I explained and stuff like that. But they were just kind of just looking at me in a weird way. And I know it just sounds really paranoid, but they just kind of gave off this really strange vibe that I felt like I was in some kind of predicament, not necessarily danger. And it was also at that point that they asked me to stay at their apartment in New York, and that I should go to the Bohemian Grove. But I'm like, yeah, but that's not going to happen because it's only for women, or it's only for men, not for women. And he said, well, that's only during the cremation of care. And he said, you can eat lunch there and everything. And I was just thinking, okay, well, I don't know, maybe. And then he had a conversation about his son. He was talking about Yale New Haven University, and he explained to me that his son was into art as well. And I thought, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. And he said, yeah, my son, he goes to the Yale New Haven University. And I was like, oh really, he does? And he said, yep, you know the program. And I was like, oh, okay, I wonder if it's that kind of skull and bones program that he's mentioning. But again, that could have just been my imagination. I don't know. Um, I also asked him about, what president he thought was going to be president. This is when Obama was going to be president. So he said, "Oh, it's gonna. I think Obama will win." And I thought, well, he probably already knows that. I don't know.
So you've had so many interesting experiences, and sometimes when people are being kind of watched over, you hear stories about people kind of popping up out of the blue that have somewhat prestigious positions or empowerments or entitlements.
Yeah, that happened a lot. That happened a lot because my parents are divorced, and we had when I was it was just a weird coincidence. I was studying the Denver International Airport, and subsequently there was a guy that came over. His name is Tom Connerton, and he helped to develop, aerial sketches of the roof of the Denver International Airport. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, who like comes to the town of Madison and then he was dating my mother, and this happened like my mom went on a few dates with a few other gentlemen, and so that was that one guy. He didn't he for some reason he always came to the house and he didn't have a car. And I'm like, Mom, where's his car? And she's like, oh, he parked it like down the street or whatever. And I'm like, why? What the heck? I don't understand that. And none of us really question it too much. And then there's another guy. His name is Rand, and he was interested in the fact that I was interested in extraterrestrial stuff because that weird stuff had been happening. It was really recent, like after all the activity had been going on in the house, and he wanted to know if I knew anything about the Arecibo message that was sent out into space and like something to do with Carl Sagan. And I'm like, no, sorry, I have no idea. And he was like, are you sure? I don't know. It was weird. So that kind of lasted short. And then there's another guy, Andrew Davis, I think that was his name. He was working with NASA and he was developing tiny little nano microchips with them. And he came into he came into the restaurant where my mom works and asked her out on a date and everything. And then he was trying to convince me that the Illuminati didn't exist. Like I didn't really bring up this stuff with him that much. He just kind of, I don't know. It was just weird. It was weird, very strange, and that was it. And now my mother is dating some other guy. She's been dating him for a long time. But he lives right next to the guy who went to Bohemian Grove, and I'm just like, what the? Like, you know what? Never mind. Like, I'm tired of just making up, you know, of trying and not making up, but like trying to figure out what it is, like why this happens. We don't really have that small of a town. It's just such a coincidence that they live right next to each other. It just happened to be literally right across from each other. And uh, of all the places in Madison, it's right there. And I just thought, oh gosh, another weird coincidence, Mom. Gee, I wonder why. So, and even the guy Tom, like he came into our house at 6:30 in the morning. Like he literally just walked in and he went upstairs without even saying anything. And I thought it was a freaking burglar because I had to get ready for school. It was high school, and um, I got up and I went into the room. I'm like, who's here? And he like chuckled from upstairs. And this sounds like something out of a movie, but he was like, it's the spy. And my mom came downstairs and she looked a little concerned or worried. And she was like, I'm going to take the dog out. And I was like, what? Why are you going to leave me in the house with this guy? I don't even know who he is. And she's like, it's okay. Don't worry. And then like she went outside. I don't know what she was doing, but then I was alone. The guy came downstairs and he like was standing right next to me. And I was kind of like backed up into the dryer where we had like the washer and dryer. And he was like, so I know that your parents got divorced. And I was like, yeah. And he said, well, that's okay. Your mom and I will take care of that. He's like, you're moving to Florida, right? And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. Every time my question, the question he asked me, and my answer would be yeah, really quickly, because I was really scared. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I don't even know why my dogs didn't react either, because they usually do, but they didn't care. So that was just really bizarre. Like, and after all these things happened, like these guys don't really pop into my mother's life anymore. But I asked her, I'm like, don't you think it's really bizarre that this stuff happened? And she's like, yeah, that one guy kind of looked like a lizard. I was like, yeah, he kind of did, didn't he? And oh, yeah, I don't know. I was just like, really? You think so? And she was like, yeah, he really did. And my mom told me that he told her that he wanted to, it's not really significant, I guess, but that he wanted to like bite her neck like a vampire or something like that. And it was just really, really weird. I don't know. There's some really bizarre stuff going on. And I tried telling my sister this, and she was just like, "No offense, Kendall, you sound really paranoid." And I'm like, "But I'm not paranoid. It's just that these things were happening, and I'm telling you what happened. I'm not scared. I mean, I was scared when Tom came in, but I'm not scared like to talk about it at all." And I don't know. At the time this stuff was going on, yeah, I felt like I was being like followed and stalked. It was weird. But that probably is because I put a lot of information out on the internet. I had a huge YouTube channel a long time ago. It was called We Change We Grow, and there was a lot of stuff and material, and at the time there was Hashem Films. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but he had me like send me a video clip of, you know, what happened with the reptilian experience, and like stuff just got really, really, really messed up and weird when that was going on. So yeah,
What do you mean by that? Could you get into that a little bit?
I mean, like all that stuff was taking place, like the reptilians, the greys, um, and the Pleiadian stuff was happening during the same time where those guys were coming into our house and just kind of messing with our life, and it was just, it was weird. And also, I was thinking about Rand, because there is something that I was reading in my new book called the Rand experiment or something like that, and I thought maybe that's just like a cover name they gave him. But these people just kind of disappear. They dropped off, and I don't know what happened to them now. Um, but it just seemed like there was like, when I say a lot of activity, a lot of weird, bizarre stuff, that was a time where the experience with with the experience with that guy from the Bohemian Grove happened, and then all those guys just showed up and like were dating my mom, and they were mostly like trying to, they're just talking to me about alien stuff, and I was just really confused. So, um, and then like the gray alien, the gray alien thing is what kind of sparked the whole thing to happen, and the reptilian thing when I came back from Florida, because when I told my mom the next time, like she saw that I was researching this stuff, and she's like, "I think you need to see a doctor." And I'm just like, "Yeah, thanks." But I'm laughing at it now, but we kind of got in an argument, and I felt really bad, and I was like crying, and I thought, you know, I just wish that she would have an experience or something, so that she would believe me. And I was younger, you know, I'm 27 now, but I was upset, you know. I didn't want my mom to think I was nuts or crazy. So, but that night she had an experience herself, and she like had a dream that she saw these aliens, these skinny aliens with beautiful wings, and then she saw these dragon humanoid type of people, like draconians. There are like two different kinds of reptilians, or maybe three. The ones I saw were shorter, kind of hybrid reptilians, and then there's reptilian humanoids that they don't have any wings. And then there's draconians where they have wings and they look like kind of dragon humanoid people or something like that. But she saw them. Oh, and they tend to have horns or conical horns or things like that. But when she had that experience, she was so shocked by it that she woke me up the next morning. She hardly ever does, and she's like, "Oh my god, I have to tell you. Oh my god, oh my god. I think I saw an alien and all this other stuff." I'm like, I'm just waking up, and I'm just like, what is going on? And I actually had um the document called the threat to, what is it, like a briefing on the threat to human freedom or something like that, and it had all the information about like what reptilians and draconians were, and at the time when she was telling me her experience, I talked to her about that pamphlet, and I asked her if it looked like this, and she was like, yes. And I'm like, did it have this and this? And she was like, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. And I'm like, Mom, I think you saw a draconian. And like, I was pretty excited about it, but now when I try to talk to her about it, she doesn't remember. So she doesn't remember, or she just kind of doesn't care, which is understandable because most people don't really care about this kind of topic. So the only people that care about it are people who want to know about it, or they're curious, or just for pure entertainment.
You know, and another thing too, it's interesting because you were talking about she would be there watching you get abducted at the window, and she was there next to you when you couldn't get up and she couldn't get up because these beings were sitting on you, whether it be in the ethereal realms or the astral realms or physical or both.
Yeah.
So it just sounds like maybe there's some type of conditioning, like MK Ultra almost type programming that has locked in those memories. And I wonder if she would ever consider doing a hypnosis session or something like that.
Nope.
Won't even consider it.
Oh no, my mom is not into the stuff at all, unless there's a big reason to be into it. But there's
Right,
not for her. It's not
right.
really a motivation for her.
So now you've been like you've lived on the East Coast, the West Coast. You've lived in Colorado, and those are some pretty hot spots as far as activity goes for what you're talking about. Now, when was the last time you had an experience, Kendall?
Well, we never really touched on the important topics of the Pleiadians, so that's
Well, let's
why.
step back there then. Yeah, we can go into
Okay.
that. Okay, let's do that. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I gotta say, like, my most positive, memorable experiences were when I had met a Pleiadian on board a ship. So the very first time I met a Pleiadian, and Pleiadians, they're very tall. They're blonde. They have blonde hair, brown hair, and they have stunning blue eyes. They look like a Swedish model. They tend to wear blue or red suits, like tight. Um, the most memorable positive experience I had was with Myra of the High Council of the Galactic Federation of Light. And I know that kind of sounds like a cheesy title, but that's literally what she told me when I had an out of body experience. I was taken. I'm really not sure if it was out of body or physical. To me, it felt like it was physical, but it could have been a different experience. But I was taken aboard the ship, and this happened in 2010 or 2011 when I was still in Colorado, and
What part of
I
Colorado?
was I was Denver.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. hmm Yeah. So I found myself on board a small ship, and um, the reason why I say small is because it didn't feel that spacious to me. Like, I've been on other ships that are spacious, and I'll get to that in a minute. But there was this gorgeous woman that was standing next to me, and she was wearing this blue jumpsuit kind of thing, or a blue spacesuit, and she had long blonde hair and the bluest eyes. I mean, these eyes were like very, very blue. And she immediately embraced me and gave me the biggest hug. Like, I had, it felt so good because it felt like she was like a family member or something. I felt like I knew her really well. And um, she had taken me on a seat and she was explaining to me about Trinity, like a whole belief system that they themselves have about Trinity and the power of the source of all that is and how they believe in that. And then she showed me the image of a phoenix, a burning bird, that's in mythology a lot. And I still don't know why, but this was all telepathic communication. The Pleiadians don't communicate with their lips. They communicate telepathically. I found that it's a universal language for extraterrestrials. They don't really use their lips to talk. So that was happening, and I found out her name because the experience was pretty short. And I felt like, it was time for me to leave. But before I did, I realized, wait a minute, oh my God, like what I'm experiencing right now is absolutely incredible, and I have to know who this woman is. So I was like, wait, like before I go, like, what is your name? I called out to her. And she was just like, oh, you don't remember? It's Myra of the High Council of the Galactic Federation of Light. She said, I am Myra of the Galactic Federation of the Council of Light, or something like that. So immediately I like snapped awake, and I thought, oh my God, that was so amazing. And I called my friend and I told him all about it. Um, and I thought, wow, this is so cool. Like, I saw this extraterrestrial woman. And then I ended up going back to another ship and she was on there again. And this was like a while after. I thought, I really want to, get down to the bottom of this and see if I can contact this person again. So I did, and I ended up astral projecting to one of the ships. Their ships are very, 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 very long, they're almost like miles long, and inside it's extraordinarily spacious. And the floors are white. And basically, I was in this room where they had monitors on the wall, and I had asked a few people, and the Pleiadians are very tall. Like I mentioned before, I'm 6 foot 1.5. They are around the same kind of height, maybe a little bit taller. Some of them have blonde hair, others have brown hair. They're not all like blonde, but most of them are. So, or at least, my experience with that is that, a lot of them are blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. So I was asking around, and I was like, "Where's Myra? Have you seen Myra?" And I was looking for her. And then, of course, if you think about somebody when you're in astral projection, you just go there. So I found her, and she seemed surprised. She was like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, I just came to see you. I thought it was amazing. You appeared, took me on a ship and everything." And she's like, "Oh, no, 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 no. You're not supposed to be here right now." And so I was like, "Oh, but I really wanted to see you." And she gave me another hug, and it was wonderful. But then she's like, "You really are not supposed to be here." So I kind of got sent back, and there was just darkness, and then I got sent back, and that was then. And then finally I went back again, and this is not like, the same day, but this is like a while after. And I was talking to my friend. I'm like, "I'll try to get more information. I'll try to talk to her again." So I go back to the ship again, and I try I try to find her, and there's all these people that, are there. And then there she is. I see her, and she looks at me, and she's just like, "Oh my gosh, no." Like her facial expression's like, "Oh my God." And then there's another woman standing next to her who's telling her, "No, it's all right. Just, let her stay. It's all right." So they let me stay. They had another tall guy with blonde hair kind of give me a tour of the ship. And I noticed that there were also like feline looking humanoid people there as well. I believe they belong to a different kind of a different race. But there were corridors, there's a level, there's an area that's the ground level, and then there's another level above me where, there's obviously stairs or some kind of balcony that's up there, another level, you know what I mean? Another floor level.
Yeah.
So at the time I realized that, I was really having this experience, and I was remembering that Pleiadians are supposed to be like these really super nice ETs, and not angry or jealous or like any like negative emotions. But the other woman had come over to me, and she heard my intentions because they're telepathic. And because I asked her, I'm like, "I thought you guys were supposed to be like really nice and super friendly." And she said to me, she said, "We are spiritual. We have our own culture, and we are just like you. We just reside in another dimension." And she explained to me that they don't like to be referred to as angels or any godly kind of aspects because they just want to be seen as other people. They're just like us. They have all the range of emotions. They're a lot more spiritually evolved than us. Like they know how to walk through walls by controlling the atoms or something like that. Um, so there is one important experience that I forgot to mention. Was after the first time I had seen Myra, I was taken aboard on the ship again. But before that happened, I was shown a dream. Now that this is weird, right? I'll try to say this quickly, but I was shown a dream where I saw a blue star in the sky, and there were ships that were landing on the beach, on some sort of a beach. And I was on a hill, and I was looking at this, so I walked down and I go to the beach, and it was like sort of weird because there were also grays there too in some of the ships, and they were going to kill off some people, and there was a lot of destruction that was going to happen. And then I went over to another ship, and there were Pleiadians there, and they had a chart or something like that, some electronic chart, and they were checking off names of people that were coming on board to be, I don't know, saved from this destruction. So when I went up to them, they were gonna put me on the ship to be like killed off by the Greys. Of course, this is just a dream first, but you'll understand why it's significant in a moment. So I was like, "No, don't do that. I'm Pleiadian." And then "Well, why didn't you say that before?" So the next thing I know, I'm looking out the window. I'm sitting down on a seat, and I'm looking out the window of this ship, and I see all this destruction happening, all this lava, all this fire. And I asked him, like, I'm like, why is this happening? And he says, and the man says, well, man has destroyed the earth and it must be cleansed. So that was what he said. And I watched this happening. And then all of a sudden, I'm not even kidding you. All right. This is like where I felt the most physical, like this is where I felt the most, it was the most real and I was really there. Um, I wake up from the dream I was having. I wake up in a ship. I was lying down on my back and I'm just gasping and I'm like, oh my, what's going on? Like I didn't say anything. I was like, oh my God. I was terrified. And there were three people, they're Palladians, they're standing over me. And one of them put their hand on my forehead and they gently, it was really gentle presence. And they said, it's okay. Don't be afraid. This is just the standard procedure. You're going to be all right. And then, the next thing I know, I'm just, there's darkness again. And then I feel not a jolt that you would feel when you wake up from a dream, but literally just being dropped onto my bed in Colorado. So this all happened in Denver, Colorado. And I'll never forget it. So that was that.
Did you ever go to the airport out there?
Yep. And I snooped around there.
We
I
had a
did.
we had a guest on here a while back, Bob Fletcher, and back in the '90s, I think he said in '95, he was actually able to get into the underground area in the Denver
Oh
airport. He said it was just
gosh.
enormous. Now, you were talking earlier too about how you were in these bases. Do you think there was like a government base? Did you see any actual military people or white coats?
Yeah, I did see a white coat. Like I think the person that was kind of showing me around was a person in a white coat. Um, there are some instances where I would be, I don't know. It's really weird that there were some recent instances where I would be in a lab room, and I would be given like these shots in my arm, and it would hurt. It would hurt like a son of a bitch. And they would give me yeah, these shots in my arm. And one night, like that happened, and the next morning, the next day, there was a bruise on my arm. And I talked to my girlfriend and I was like, there's a bruise on my arm. And I told you about that dream I had. And she was like, oh, that's weird. You must have done it to yourself in your sleep. And I was just like, I guess, you know? Of course, there is another thing I forgot to mention. Like I told you, like I have had multiple experiences, but there is the one there that I had an incredible amount of pain in my stomach. It was absolutely horrendous. I was by myself. I was taking care of my sister's dogs. I was dog sitting. And that night I was reading Are You Alone by Paul Davies. It's the same book that Hillary Clinton got when she met Lawrence Rockefeller. So I was really intrigued by that. I just got the book, even if she really didn't get the book from him, or if she didn't get that book at all, and it was photoshopped. I didn't care. I just wanted to get it anyway. And it's a book about what would happen if we had met extraterrestrials and all the stuff that happened. Well, I don't remember anything at all from that book at all. And while I was reading it, I had the worst pain in my life on my stomach, and I thought this is definitely not a gas pain. Like I was ready to go to the hospital. It was that bad. But what ended up happening is I ended up slowly losing consciousness, and then there were these grays that were operating on my stomach, and some person, I don't know, somebody had mentioned that my stomach was bleeding, um, and that was it. And the next morning I had soreness.
That's pretty strange.
Yeah, in my opinion, I feel like they saved my life or something weird happened. I don't know.
Yeah, wow. So, where did you go after Colorado?
After I was done with Colorado, I came back to Connecticut. I lived with my dad for a while, and then I thought, well, I don't want to live here anymore. And not because I didn't want to live with my dad, but because, I just wanted to go on with my life and do other
Sure.
things. So I called up my friend Mike, and of course I ended up living with him for 2 years, and then I met my girlfriend, and then we moved to California, and here I am now.
Putting together some really cool stories and stuff. You're trying to get into networks here, right?
Yeah, I'm working on a cartoon with my business partner right now, and we're pitching it to Nickelodeon and the Cartoon Network. And it's cool because like all my experiences and stuff, all my dreams, all my astral projection experiences, they they are really inspiring to me at the same time that some of them are scary, but they're equally inspiring, and it's really a good basis for a cartoon like environment or a fantasy environment. I've always been really super interested in like fantasy worlds and stuff. But I'm making a book right now based off of the creatures that I've seen in my dreams or in the astral plane. Oh, and you better bet the aliens will definitely be in there. So yeah, those will be in
Perfect.
there. Yep. So it's called the Falkenstrom Field Guide to the Creatures in Our Dreams. It's not done yet, but I tend to publish it. I'll publish it when it's done, and it'll be cool. I haven't quite decided what format I want to put it in, like whether I want it to be black and white or colored. But that's what I'm doing, and then um, yeah, I'm working 3 jobs right now, um, and my girlfriend, she does not believe in any of this stuff, like the alien stuff. Forget it. She's not into it, but that's fine. That's totally fine because she's got her own beliefs, and I respect that. So, um, but I've had so many of these types of experiences that it's really just it's just, I don't know, it's part of me now.
Huh.
I'm used to it if it happens. I'm just like, well, here we go again, I guess. And it doesn't really hurt me. It just adds more inspiration to my design and my character concepts and things like that. And it also fuels my imagination, and it can be good conversation when people are having drunk conversations or whatever.
Nice.
And
Do you do you talk about this stuff a lot, or do you typically keep it to yourself?
I definitely keep it to myself. Unless people ask me, like I know when to bring up this kind of stuff around people when it's okay to do that, because I'm pretty intuitive. And there is there is a psychic part of me that does happen, like what did happen with your dog when I remote viewed that. But there were other recent instances where I went to a gallery with my father, and there was this woman there who had all this art and canvases in the room. And I went over to this particular canvas, and I told her that the presence of her mother was really strong in this room. And she almost started to cry because her mother had passed away, and she explained all that. And um it was really intense, and so she's totally about to cry, and I felt badly because that does happen a lot when I get these feelings that just come rushing in, and I'm like really hypersensitive to this kind of stuff. So like this other time I almost started crying because my friend, my sister's friend, had her grandfather was like right there next to her, and I felt his presence. And and sometimes they have messages and sometimes they don't. But I'll just mention it. I'll be like, "Wow, there's a really strong presence of whomever or whatever around you," and they'll just be like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. This and this happened." I'm not really. I wish I was pulling like something out of my imagination, but it really honestly just comes out of nowhere. I don't actively seek it out. It just happens, and I get this really strong sensation and feeling and emotional, like all the emotions from that person will hit me all at once, especially even if it's not a ghost or anything like that. I'll get really sensitive around people who have had profound experiences or really bad and traumatic experiences. So I'll feel what they feel on a certain level, and then most of the time, like back in 2009, I did help Godlight Productions a lot. I helped a lot of people just because I was just doing that just to do it, and just to help out. But I don't really do that anymore. It just kind of happens on its own.
So let me ask you that when you did reach out to me that time and you talked about my dog, I mean, what prompted you to do that? And like, what did you visually see something? Did you just feel it?
Visually it comes up in my mind. When I try to explain it to people, it's like I'm just seeing an image in my mind. That's what happens. And speaking of images, I also forgot to mention that, the main thing that I do right now is cartoon my dog. So I draw people's pets as cartoons, and because I have such a good visual imagination, I tend to utilize that to bring out the best aspects of people's pets and their silly, good-hearted playfulness that comes out. And I've always drawn cartoons, so it's cartoonmydog.com, and it's a lot of fun. And I what I do is when people do buy it, the commission, I'll donate, some of the percentage to like World Wildlife, what's it called? World Wildlife Funds
Oh yeah,
Foundation. I
awesome.
mean, the Wild Animal Foundations and other animal charities and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. And your work is just on par with, the best of them. And you got a really neat YouTube channel as well. It's youtube.com/Kendall Falk. Really great stuff. And I've also noticed that you've evolved over the years with your work too. It just seems like every time you come out with something else, it just is more polished and bright and pops. And, that's incredible. Have you had anything recently happen to you? Because I know you travel a lot, you're all over the place.
Oh, actually, yeah, I have. We had some weird kind of presence in this house in North Hollywood. My girlfriend and I, we were in bed, and all of a sudden, um, I was having this dream of this woman, and like she's like Victorian, in the Victorian age, like she was wearing Victorian clothing, and she like came up to me, and then this this particular experience, this one was actually, I would say it's actually the most terrifying thing. It really, really, it tops everything I've experienced because I really thought I was going to die. Um, there was this super fast flashing in my head, like physically I was experiencing this, and there was a like a it's really hard to explain, but it was like a really it was like a series of really fast flashes that I was seeing in my head, and it was also really loud, like it was like like that. It was just like vroom, 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 and it was happening so fast, and I couldn't, like, had a real shortness of breath, and I was like, "What is, like, a stroke? I'm having a heart attack. I'm gonna die," or like whatever is happening. I don't know what was happening, and well, I guess it was, I don't know what it was, but to me, I guess it was just like the ghost that was like right up in my face, and then it just left because our friend had come in and asked the ghost to leave because my girlfriend was also seeing like a shadow figure in the other corner of the room, and now ever since that happened, she can't sleep with the light off outside. So and she doesn't believe in any of this stuff, but I'm like, so you saw a shadow person in the corner of the room, and this happened when I was really, really ill. I had the norovirus. I had horrible food poisoning, and I couldn't come home. I was at a friend's, and I was just sick for 7 days or more, and um she had told me that when I went away, this shadow man would be standing in the corner of the room. So that was kind of surprising to me, and then I was like, okay, we need to do something about that. So like when we cleansed the room, that was when that stuff happened to me, like the flashing lights and everything. I thought I was having like some sort of a seizure, like it was weird, but I went to the doctors, I got everything checked out just fine. They I even had an MRI done and everything. Everything came back normal. Nothing wrong, nothing psychosomatic, like nothing at all that was out of the ordinary. The only thing that was out of the ordinary that I've ever been told, it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit, but the doctor was like, "Well, you're abnormally tall for a woman." And she's like, "But other than that, you're fine." And I'm like,
Wow.
"Great, thanks a lot for that." Yeah, I
Nice.
don't know. I'm not that tall. I'm just 6 feet.
Hey,
6 feet.
that's how tall you got to be a supermodel, Kendall. So look at the bright side.
I did try modeling though. It didn't. That also didn't really
You're
work. I
way
really
too smart for that. I mean, my goodness.
Well, I was going to school at the time, and I was just like, they called me back because they wanted me to come back, and I was just like, no, I
Right.
don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Just go away.
That would be just one of the most boring jobs on the planet.
It's just stressful. But I've met a lot stranger people than me. Like I met this one girl who died like 8 times. I don't know if that's true or not. I really, really don't know. But I don't know. She explained to me that she died 8 times, and she did it to herself by she wanted she wanted to find out what it was like, so she ingested what was it? Nightshade, deadly nightshade, and there's an EMT there and everything, and she came back after 3 hours and got information and stuff.
Have they ever asked you to send back certain information? I mean, do you Do you think that you're a part of some possible plan or something like that overall?
Well, I don't know, because when I met Bill Tompkins, and that's the guy that I wanted you to interview later on, but I met him and he told me that I was Nordic and that he had met a Nordic and that he believes himself to be Nordic. And Nordics are another species of extraterrestrials that are tall and blonde and blue-eyed, but I don't know. He was supposed to meet with me, but he suddenly couldn't because I don't know. He explained to me that the situation was critical. He literally said it over the phone. He's like, "Look," he said, "the situation has become critical." It is in reference to disclosure or something to do with Congress. I don't know, but he was like, "I can't help you." He's like, I have to go," and then he just hung up. So, and that was that. I was kind of disappointed because I really wanted to like talk to him about more of the stuff, but it just got cut short.
What's next for you, Kendall? What do you got planned on the horizon?
um, well, really just expanding Cartoon My Dog and, working on this cartoon, um, working these jobs and just kind of and drawing. A lot of drawing. I can't wait to publish that book, the creatures book, because it's going to be a lot of fun. And this is something that I'm not asking people to submit their drawings from their dreams, or I mean their creatures, because I want this to be a book that's based on what I have seen in the astral plane or in my dreams, so that I can accurately represent it without having it be like someone's imagination. Even though people would be like, "Well, that is your imagination," and like, well, I don't know. I just want to do it myself. You
That's
know.
good.
So the other thing I wanted to do is also make, like, I've been to a whole bunch of worlds in whatever it's a dream world, astral plane, whatever. I plan on making a map, like a full blown map that goes with the book, so that like I can draw these places and I've seen like this one place um that it's like in the middle of the ocean. It's a big tower, and I've seen reptilians that walk around there and they have armor on and everything. It's actually really pretty cool. So it's like some kind of a fortress that's like right in the middle of the ocean, and I always see it, you know? So I'll definitely like draw that. But for now, I think I'm probably gonna like probably make something to eat pretty soon.
Ah, nice. Well, and Kendall, I really appreciate you coming on tonight with us here at the Leak Project. I can't wait to see the new videos you put up, and I'm really excited to see this book come out and the drawings you put together. Keep us informed, and thanks for everything.
Yeah, I hope that it was an entertaining interview, that I wasn't like too boring or anything, but that's the truth of all the stuff that happened. And if any of your listeners have any questions, they can email me at kendallf@live.com. So I'll be happy to answer your questions as best as I can. Of course, I don't have all the answers, and I don't know, I really don't know why this stuff happens to me, but it does. And I'm gonna go with the fact that I'm just really open-minded. But at the same time, like I had mentioned, there's that line that I try not to cross, because it's just it's just it's a weird topic, and when I talk about it to other people, sometimes I will talk about it with other people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, huh, that's weird," and I'm just like, "Oh, I totally screwed that up." They probably think I'm a nut, but it's all right. That does not happen all the time. I really honestly like try to keep it to myself. Um, but the truth is that it does inspire my drawings and everything, and it's really cool when I get to like control my lucid dreams. There is that aspect too. Like with the lucid dreams, I can control them. So the cool thing is that I'm able to turn into a wolf when I want to, or turn into animals, because I love animals. Animals are kind of my thing. And when I tell, it just sounds so dorky when I tell it to other people, like, "Oh, I can turn into a wolf in my dreams."
Well, that's just lucid dreaming. I mean, if you can control your dreams, that's a really cool ability to have, especially when you can remember it after you wake up.
Yeah, but when you are lucid dreaming and you do start to control it from there, that's when you can enter the astral plane, because the astral is that realm. It's not a realm of thought. Like, I think there are different levels that make it up. There's different kind of, just like there's kind of, there's different levels to, or sorry, different layers to an onion. there's different layers to those kind of realms too. There's the lower level have entities that are darker, and you'll find kind of hellish experiences there, while the upper realms have higher beings, meaning more positive entities, more positive experiences. Um, and then, you have the emotional realms and you have the thought realms where you have your own creations. Like one of my drawings, it's funny because like my father is sort of kind of into the stuff, but he had dreamt of one of my creatures that I had drawn. So I I feel like, the creature that I drew appeared in his dream because that's the realm of thought. And since he's a family member, maybe the consciousness connected with him, which is why I think my mother had that experience with dreaming about the reptilians and stuff like that, because I was really upset that she didn't believe me. So maybe it's just something like that. I really couldn't say if, I can't say definitively, like, okay, um, I was abducted. This is what happened. That's what happened. I can tell you that I've seen so many documentaries and I've seen a lot of movies. I've talked to a lot of people. I've even had people come up to me and ask me if I was Palladian. And I've had people tell me that they used to work in a military base and they've met Nordics. Who do you believe? Who do you trust? I don't know. But these things do happen, and most of the time, the answer is unexplained. But to this day, I still want to, I need to see proof. And even though, yes, I know I've seen ghosts and everything, but after you have those experiences, you sort of just, you don't really forget them. They just sort of fade away. And then you begin to think back on it and you think, well, did that really happen? Or, was that my imagination? But at the time I experienced it, I was freaking scared out of my mind. But now that I'm trying to revisit it and come at it in a logical space of mine, I try to delineate and, use my critical thinking to figure out what it was. But nowadays it's not that important to me to figure that stuff out. It's more important to me to get my art out into the world and to inspire other people, to have people go after their own dreams. And maybe we could have another interview sometime talking about like a specific subject, and we can expand on that. But that's like my most honest answer that I can give everybody that's listening to this, because I don't want anybody to think, oh, it's just like on acid or smoked a bunch of weed and stuff. But I don't do any of that. I just don't. This stuff just happens.
Do you
And
drink peyote tea, Kendall?
all the time.
I'm just kidding.
It's left up to me. It's just an experience. It's left up to me, the experiencer, to decide whether or not it was real or not. Like what is real is based on your perception of what is happening in your reality. So, and like, and I'm aware of the law of attraction, and I do believe in that. That's like the basis of my life is if you believe things will happen, then they will. But if you don't, like if you're afraid of it, you're gonna attract it more into your life if you're afraid of it. And just like, but we can talk about that another time, because I have a lot of experiences with the law of attraction that is a heavy influence in my life. And I believe in the source. I believe in the source of all things that is creation. So, but that's what I'll leave your listeners with, is a big I don't know. But there are theories that try to explain why those things happen. So
Very cool. Very
that's
cool.
my best answer. Yeah.
We live in the twilight zone. The whole world is a stage, and it's just an absolute amazing trip that we're on. And Kendall, once again, thank you for sharing your personal stories with us. I know that this stuff can be really tough to talk about, like you said, because of ridicule and just the people that are out there that either want to troll or just don't understand, or they're just genuine a-holes or whatever. I mean, there's all the above. So really,
Oh,
but I can
yeah, I
certainly
don't
tell you
I don't
this.
care if people troll me. I seriously, like, because we talked about how Godlight Productions, that site, will groom you to be used to being trolled, but I don't really. I've been DDoSed. I've been No, I'm not even kidding. I've been DDoSed. I've been hacked into. I've been trolled, made fun of, and all that other stuff like so many times beforehand. That it's not. I'm not used to it. It doesn't happen to me anymore. It doesn't need to, because I don't allow that into my life. You know what I mean? Like I'm just
Sure.
like, well, like if somebody tries to do that, I'm just like, whatever. you know,
Right.
if you try to DDoS my computer, I just shut it off. You know.
Right.
So that it's just those kind of things. It's just not necessary to really, pay attention to it.
Sure. Sure. Well, Hey, Kendall, thanks again. We'll talk soon, and you have a fantastic night.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for having me on, um, and you have a good night as well.
Absolutely. And folks, I just want to remind you once again, make sure to check out Kendall's website at cartoonmydog.com. Also, she's got a great YouTube channel where you can listen to these different animal impersonations that she made that sound just spot on. And that would be youtube.com/Kendall Falk. Have a safe night, a safe journey, ladies and gentlemen. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight here at the Leak Project. I am your host, Rex Bear, and we have a great guest with us tonight, Kendall Falk. Now, I met Kendall about 4 years ago when I used to spend a large portion of my time blogging and researching different news forums. Often there would be roundtable discussions, and one forum in particular I would go on, we would discuss current events, politics, alternative news, and history, a lot of what the guests discuss here at the Leak Project. Now, I'll never forget the first time Kendall reached out to me on voice chat and said she felt compelled to tell me something, and she started to describe a dog I had several years ago, literally to a T, all the way down to its half blue eye, because it was part Australian Shepherd. Now, as skeptical as I was at first, when she got into that much detail, it definitely opened my mind to the possibility that I wasn't getting my leg pulled and she wasn't making it up. Now, Kendall, being an artist, a performer, a storyboard creator, and friend, she is also a multi-year contactee and has had paranormal encounters and abilities since childhood. Now, Kendall has made contact with different types of greys, reptilians, and Nordics, or what some might call Pleiadians. She also has the ability to control lucid dreaming, remote view, and astral project. She's an amazing artist with a very unique ability to cartoon somebody's pet, or anything for that matter. And much of her time now, she creates colorful works of art at www.cartoonmydog.com. Also, she's got some great videos on YouTube, youtube.com/Kendall Falk, spelled KENDALLFALK. Now, we're going to discuss many of Kendall's encounters and paranormal experiences. Kendall, it's great to have you on here with us tonight at the Leak Project. I really appreciate you spending some time with us. If you would please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me on. I grew up on the East Coast in Connecticut, and my family and we've had a lot of experiences. We've seen ghosts. We've had those kind of supernatural things happen, and over time it just got weirder and weirder. I've always been open-minded and a little skeptical, but ever since things started happening, like all the experiences with these ghosts, I started opening my mind a little bit more, reading a lot of books, talking to a lot of people, watching a lot of documentaries, and then especially when when big events happen. Sorry, I just got interrupted because somebody just came in the door.
No problem.
um, yeah, I'll just basically, like, there are a lot of experiences that we had as a family. Um, some of us were not that open-minded, but I've always been open to this kind of stuff. Like, we went to a place called Friendship Island. Sounds a little silly, but it's actually in Maine. And we stayed in a house that nobody told us was haunted. I was very young, and I had my first ghost experience there where I saw a little boy, and he had died from some kind of illness or something like that. And for some reason, I don't know why, but it never dawned on me that, oh, this person was a ghost. I just always thought that there was a little boy that was hanging around the house. And I don't know if I told you about that one experience, but that was the experience that kind of opened my mind after the fact, because my father told us that the house was haunted, or supposedly haunted, when we had left. And that was when I realized, oh, okay, I guess that the boy that I saw wasn't a real boy. Or
Right.
something.
Now, was it
Yeah.
like a full apparition? Looked just like a normal person, not see through or anything like that? Nothing gave you when you the impression when you saw him that he was a ghost?
No, I didn't get any impression that he was a ghost. I thought that he was staying with us and that he had asked to play some games. It sounds a little cliche, but he did. And this would happen during the night and it was just a little strange. I just didn't really I was really young though. I was about 4 or 5 and this is really, really, really long time ago. But a more recent experience is when I was about 16 or 17 and I had seen a ghost appear in my room, full apparition. I just knew that they were there because I had an extreme, extreme feeling. And now, if you ever see a ghost or if you ever have any kind of supernatural event happen, there's always this really very strong feeling in the room that there's somebody there. And I knew that it wasn't anybody else because the dogs weren't in the room and my mother was upstairs. So when I turned around, I saw this apparition of a man in a 19th century suit. And he was coming towards me, and of course, I didn't know what to do. My brain was trying to put this all together. I was definitely not hallucinating. It was clear as day. So the only thing I could muster out was no, no. I didn't know what else to do. And he kind of stopped and he froze in place and he looked at me and then he slowly just sort of dissipated and I heard, I'm sorry. And the next thing I know that I fainted from this because I was so shocked from the experience that I fainted. And I had an out of body experience where I then met that ghost on the other side and he sat down and he explained how he was sorry that he scared me. So that was the second time I ever saw like a person. Of course, when I was a kid, there were like these things that would happen. I would see people that I thought there was just around, and it turns out that when I think back on it, they were never supposed to be there. And like this one instance where my father and I were in the car, and there was a man that looked like part of his face was like, I don't know, damaged or like he got hit by a car or his like I know it's a little bit graphic, but it's like socket was sort of you know coming out of his eye, and it was just kind of like it looked like his face was kind of melting. It was weird. And I asked my dad, I'm like, Dad, did you see that guy with the eye? And he was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about?
Wow. So he
I
was in
was
the
about
car with
10 or
you?
11 when that happened. So yeah.
You just get, I'm telling you, chills just went up my arms. The hair is standing up on my arms right now. Do you think that that was a ghost that was basically might have had this horrific car accident or something, and then he was just sitting there next to you, like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, it probably was, and I'm just remembering also that I recently went to a ghost investigation. There's a California ghost investigation group that I went with, and on the way back, I was on the highway and I saw this girl in a black dress. Now I don't know if it was a ghost or not, but she was right in the middle of the freeway, and this was not a hallucination. This is again clear as day, not even transparent. This is like a girl in a black dress with like no shoes, and she was just like she looked like as if like a cat were going back and forth really confused. So she was just walking forward backward, and then like that was that. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the hell? So I called up the guys and I'm like, I just saw this woman in a dress, and it was really strange.
How many times would you say you've seen a ghost?
Well, probably about 5 times, including the one from my early childhood. Thomas, yeah, I found out what his name was later on. That's the second one.
How did you
Third
find out his name?
I was well, there was actually a radio thing going on where there was a psychic guy who was invited to the Edge AM with Daniel Ott. He was hosting it, and they were trying to figure out what people's spirit guides' names were. But instead, this guy Tommy, he's supposed to be a medium, and he was saying that there was a presence in my room and that it was really strong. He was saying, "Oh, this person is Kendall's spirit guide," and my jaw dropped because he said, it's funny because it looks like he's in some kind of 19th century suit and yeah, his name is Thomas, and he's tall, and he's thin, and all of that is correct. So, of course, when I told my mother this, because I was living with her, I was like, Mom, guess what? Da 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 da. And she was just like, whatever. Nobody really got what was going on, but I did. And so I just kind of accepted that. And after I did, I tried to, get him to show up. So there was this one time where my mother wasn't home, and I decided to try to, it sounds weird, but summon him or try to get him to appear. Because here I am. I've seen a ghost. I know he exists whether he's my spirit guide or not. And I asked him if he could show himself. Nothing happened. Of course, I feel like an idiot because I'm like, oh my God, this is so dumb. I'm just trying to ask for a validation from something that's probably in my imagination or whatever. Well, I mean, because I am a little skeptical of this stuff. You have to understand. I have a strong science background. I have an associate's degree in applied science, and I studied, the medical field to be a veterinary technician. Of course, it's just not really quite my thing. But without getting off on a tangent, um, it's just important to be skeptical about these things. So when I asked for the ghost to show up, nothing happened until I got really, annoyed. I'm like, this is just so stupid. I'm like, why can't you ever just give me, a damn sign? And then all of a sudden, the power just completely went out and the lights started flickering. So not only the power didn't go out, but the lights were like flickering, and there was a huge ball about the size of like a basketball that appeared in the corner of the room in the ceiling. And it wasn't a fuse, it wasn't any reflection because I had the curtains closed. I didn't want people to like watch me do this thing. So that happened and I freaked out. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, I believe you. I believe you. You exist. And I thought at this point, this can't be this friendly 19th century ghost that appeared in my room. It has to be some other entity. So I called my mother, I told her what happened, and she, of course, giggled and thought it was funny, but it wasn't to me because the lights were like flickering. I'm like, Mom, there's something wrong with the house. I did something weird by accident. So, yeah, it calmed down after a while. I went back and I was shaking. And I'm like, okay, like whoever's here, I just want positive light, in this house. So, please leave or whatever it was, whatever negative energy I felt in the house kind of went away, or it was just a test. So if you ever want to see a ghost, if anybody out there wants to see a ghost or an alien, like it's just highly not recommended. It's actually a very jarring experience. But if you can handle it, all the power to you.
Now, when did you have your first encounter with an extraterrestrial?
My first encounter with an extraterrestrial was the Greys, and again, that's probably around the same time, I saw that ghost Thomas or whatever. But the first time I saw an extraterrestrial was when I was about 17 or 18. Again, these are the times when I was sort of like came back from college for a summer break, or it was about like my early college year when I was at the Ringling College of Art and Design studying illustration. And what had happened was I was lying in bed. It wasn't time to go to bed yet, and I saw these lights outside, like these lights, like red and blue lights or something like that. And I thought, oh, okay, it's probably just a police car or something. And the lights got pretty close to my window, and I thought, no, it's not really a big deal. But for some reason, I was thinking it's not a big deal. And the next thing I know, um, now it's important to understand and distinguish the difference between dreaming and what is real. And with these abduction experiences, it can be very hard to explain this because what happens with abductees is they put a screen memory in your mind. So I mean, all the memories that I have